Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to be covering the latest additions to my APPLE-1 emulator, HoneyCrisp. Now this video is kind of going to be all over the map because I have a lot of things to cover here. However, I'm going to primarily focus on two major additions. One of those being the fact that I've created a brand new file format for the emulator called .hc. Now .hc file formats are very easy to use, and the actual makeup of the file format itself is very simple as well, but I'll get into that later in the video today. And then the other primary thing that I'm going to be focusing on is the new memory configuration system that I've built for HoneyCrisp, which allows you to select between the standard 4 kilobytes of APPLE-1 memory or the expanded 8 kilobytes of APPLE-1 memory for larger programs that need it. And you can easily just switch in between both interchangeably. But for now, we're going to start out with what exactly the .hc file format is and how you use it with HoneyCrisp. Alright, so the .hc file format stands for .honeycrisp and is quite similar to, a traditional binary file, a .bin file, and it functions very similarly in the same way as a traditional bin file would with an APPLE-1 emulator. However, .hc files have specific things that make them unique as compared to a traditional bin file. Please keep in mind that even though .hc files and binary files are similar in their internal structure, .hc files can only be used with HoneyCrisp and not with any other emulator. They are very exclusive to HoneyCrisp. And that said, you may be wondering, why would you use such an exclusive file type? Why would you not just use a binary file format and call it a day? Well, I have certain reasons, and it mainly has to do with the way I programmed the HoneyCrisp emulator. You see, in my very first video here on the channel, I had claimed that by version 1.0, HoneyCrisp would be using .binary files to load programs into memory, and so you could run them from Wasmon and whatnot. But it proved to be a challenge to get HoneyCrisp to cooperate with traditional binary formats, because what HoneyCrisp does when it loads a program is it looks for a starting address to start from, and then it takes that starting address and puts all of the bytes under that starting address. And so since a traditional binary file doesn't have those headers and the start address, HoneyCrisp doesn't know what to do with the random bytes that the binary just has sitting there, and so it doesn't know where to put the information that it's receiving. And so what I did is I ended up creating a new file format, .hc, that fixed this issue by including headers and little starting addresses and just extra information in general that allowed HoneyCrisp to go, oh hey, I know where that program wants to be loaded. It wants to be loaded here, and go from this address to this address, and then the user wants to be able to run it with that address in mind. And so essentially all an HC format is a binary file that has extra information pointing the emulator in the right direction of where to actually store the program and load it. So now that I've explained what the .hc file format is, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick comparison in how a .hc file is loaded into HoneyCrisp as compared to how .bin files were loaded into HoneyCrisp in the earlier builds, specifically the build that you saw on this channel where you had to load the starting address manually after loading the bin. I'm going to compare the new method of loading a .hc file with loading .bins from the previous iterations of HoneyCrisp, and just show you how much easier it is to actually load programs. So as seen here in the previous iteration of the program loader that I showcased here on the channel, you had to click the browse button and then click the bin file that you wanted to load, and then specifically and manually specify the address which you wanted to load the program into. And obviously this is really tedious, especially for a user who is, not really familiar with how the APPLE-1 works, who just wants to play around with some programs. They have to know the address that the program starts at, and it can be pretty tedious to do all that. And I had expressed that I would love to be able to get it to where I could just select a file and then it automatically do the heavy lifting for me, and I ended up doing that with the .hc file format. I did exactly that, actually, and I'll show you now how program loading works with the .hc format and how much easier it is. So to properly demonstrate the .hc file format and the expanded capabilities of this latest build of HoneyCrisp, which is a very early version of 1.0. I've actually started working on 1.0, and so that's why I have the build number up here with 1.0 attached to it. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the memory configuration system first. And when you first load up the page, you'll be set to 4 kilobytes of RAM, as you can see there. And so if we were to take a peek at address 1000, you can see that it's not writable, and that if we were to write content to it, the system would basically just ignore the write to that memory, and so it will show the previous content, but as you can see, nothing will take effect there. But if we were to switch to 8 kilobyte mode and refresh the page, it will hard reset the machine, and then if we soft reset into Wasmon and then try 1000 again, you can now see that 1000 is writable, and now we can enter an address, or contents for the address rather, and then write that to it. And as you can see, when we inspect that memory address again, we have 4C written there. So now the 8 kilobytes has been loaded. I'm just gonna switch this back to 00 because the program that we're loading requires the 1000 space. So we're going to open up this Mandelbrot 65.hc file, and what we're going to do is, I believe it's stored in 280. Yes, it's stored in 280, so we're going to run 280. And so, a little background on this program. It requires 8 kilobytes of RAM to run, and HoneyCrisp originally only allowed a user to use 4 kilobytes. There was no memory configuration. Well, with this new build, in this early 1.0 prototype that I'm working on, you can now use 8 kilobytes, as I just showed you, and so now, if you try to run the program, it'll run just fine. And so if we press any key, you can see here that it's running as it would on a real APPLE-1 with 8 kilobytes of onboard memory. And it runs just about as fast as a real APPLE-1 as well. And so everything's working well there. And so that's just how simple it is to change the memory configuration on HoneyCrisp. Is you just quite literally select 4 kilobytes, refresh the page. And once you refresh the page, it will hard reset the machine. Select 8 kilobytes, it will do the exact same thing, and just switch in between each memory size by refreshing the page and essentially reconfiguring the system with that certain amount of RAM. It's basically like physically taking out the RAM on a real APPLE-1 board and then replacing it with a larger amount, powering it on, and over and over again, just back and forth. And so that's how the new RAM works, and that's how easy it is to actually load a .hc file. So if I wanted to load a .hc file, as you saw, I quite literally just clicked browse and then selected my HC file, and then bam, it's loaded into memory at whatever address the program needs to run at. So as you can see, it works much more smoothly, and it's much more user-friendly than the previous iterations of HoneyCrisp were. Now, what you see here is actually pretty similar to what will be released with the final build of version 1.0. I don't plan on adding any fancy HTML elements or anything, because I really want to focus on the actual emulation of the system. But this is very close to what you're going to see when I release the final version of 1.0. I have a few more things that I would like to do first, but overall, this entire video was just kind of to show you where exactly the project has been going, and as you can see here, I mean, it's going very well. I couldn't be prouder of what I've accomplished, and you know, if you would like to continue seeing updates from me concerning HoneyCrisp and my other projects after the HoneyCrisp emulator, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. It would help me immensely in creating content, and it keeps me motivated. So, you know, I just love doing this stuff, and I hope you find it cool too, and I'll see you in the next video.